Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the November 17th meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. We are very excited because in the room today we have this beautiful new clock with hours, minutes, and seconds that are exactly right, so we are starting exactly on time. I would like to start by calling for the announcements, please.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and planning department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the commission and the board will be retained by the secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the planning department. The Planning Commission and the board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the district court.
Thank you very much. Now I call for a roll call of commissioners present, please. And please use your microphone so everyone participating virtually can hear.
Yes, ma'am. Fox.
Present.
Duell.
Here.
McKay.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Bill Johnson.
Here.
Blick. Josh Blick. Josh Blick is absent. Nix.
Here.
Foster is absent. Warren.
Here.
Joe Johnson.
Here.
Miles.
Present.
Hartman.
Here.
Cunningham.
Here.
Williams Bay.
Here.
Ma'am, I show 12 present and 2 absent.
Thank you. You received the minutes of the November 3rd meeting prior to the meeting for your review. Could I have any changes, additions, or a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Motion from Commissioner McKay. Second, Commissioner Joe Johnson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed, nay? Hearing none, minutes past 12-0.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Josh Blake is online.
Oh,
His microphone was muted.
okay.
So-
Josh, are you able to unmute and make sure we can hear
I'm
you?
here.
Okay, thank you. We now have 13.
Sorry about that.
And did you vote to approve the minutes?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Thank you.
motion passes 13-0. We'll now proceed with a review of the agenda, see if there are any items we can take on consent. Item 2.1, lot split 2022-00039 near Webb Road on 29th Street. Is there anyone on the commission who would like to hear this case? Anyone in chambers who would like to hear this case? Anyone participating virtually who would like to hear this case? We will take that item on consent. Item 2.2, subdivision 2022-00011, final plat for Hoover Road and MacArthur. Anyone in the commission want to hear this case? Does anyone in chambers want to hear this case? Anyone participating virtually want to hear this case, Blue Lake 3rd Edition? Hearing none, we can take that item on consent.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve items 2.1 and 2.2.
Second.
Second.
Motion from Bill Johnson, second from Rob Hartman. Any discussion on this item? Then all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
nay. That's, motion passes 13-0. Public hearing items, 3.1, vacation item 2021-00032, near Meridian and Kellogg. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Does anyone in chambers want to hear this case? Anyone participating virtually want to hear this case? Hearing none, we can take this item on consent. Item 3.2, vacation 2022-00033 near Central and Grove. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Anyone in chambers want to hear this case? Anyone participating virtually want to hear this case, Central Avenue and North Grove? We'll take it on consent.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve items 3.1 and 3.2.
Motion from Commissioner Green, second goes to Mr. Hartman's on the dial today. Second, Mr. Hartman, Commissioner Hartman. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes 13-0. And public hearing items begin with PUD 2022-00021 near East Central and North Grove. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Anyone in chambers want to hear this case? Anyone participating virtually want to hear this case? Planned unit development near Central and Grove. We'll take it on consent. Item 4.2, zoning case 2022-00057, West Maple and Douglas. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Anyone participating virtually want to hear this case? Anyone in chambers want to hear this case? Shook it up there to see if you're still paying attention. We'll take this item on consent. Item 4.3, zoning case 2022-00058, located near Arkansas and 21st Street North. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Anyone in chambers want to hear this case? Anyone participating virtually want to hear this case? I saw something light up, Philip. Can you tell who it is? Okay. We will take 4.3 on consent. Item 4.4, zoning case 2022-00059 and CUP 2022-00049, located West Kellogg and near Holland Lane. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Anyone in chambers want to hear this case? Okay, we will hear this case. That concludes our public hearing items. Would I have a motion on for consent?
Move to approve agenda items 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3.
Second.
I have a motion, Commissioner Green, second from Commissioner Bill Johnson. Any discussion on these items? I am sorry, Warren, you, you aren't wearing green either. Commissioner Green made the motion, Bill Johnson made the second. Any discussion? I met you on the same day, you two guys. All in favor, please indicate by aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passes 13-0. Item 4.5 we will hear, although I expect we'll be requesting a deferral of that item, and item 4.6 we will hear today. All right, there is no BZA today, so we can call Christina forward for staff report on item 4.4.
Thank you, Chairwoman Fox. This is Christina Reith, Associate Planner. This is case number zone 2022-00059 and CUP 2022-00049. So the applicant has two requests. The first one is the CUP, which is to amend the Ridge Plaza Community Unit Plan, and then the zone, which is a zone change from limited commercial to office warehouse district. So if we look at this aerial here, this the requested zone change only applies to parcel 29. However, parcels 28, 29, and 30 are being amended to reflect the adjustments to the parcel boundaries, which decreases the size of parcels 28 and 30 and increases the size of parcel 29. So these are the lots here, but these aren't the parcels. So there's two different things that we're talking about here. So this is the property in question that's doing the zone change and the CUP, and within that parcel the parcel of land, they're changing the parcels of the CUP, if that makes sense. So this site is currently undeveloped, and the applicant has not specified what will be developed on the property. So for the CUP amendment, parcel 28, they're changing the net area from 1.82 acres to 1.16 acres. For parcel 29, they're changing that from 3.16 acres to 6.95 acres. And then for parcel 30, they're changing the net area from 6.64 acres to 3.52 acres. And for each of those parcels, the maximum building coverage and the gross floor area are going to change, but the maximum building height will remain the same. And then for parcel 29, their proposed uses go from commercial uses, motor hotel, mobile home sales, automotive agencies with body shop, to just what is allowed in the Unified Zoning Code for office warehouse uses. The limited commercial district permits a variety of public, commercial, industrial, and agricultural uses. By comparison, OW office warehouse allows new and more intensive uses. Some of those include animal care, general, construction sales and service, warehouse, self-service storage, and tattooing and body piercing. And those are all by right except for the tattooing and body piercing. So just skipping ahead here, on the west end of the property, General Provision 8 of the CUP requires a 5 to 8 foot high solid wall to be constructed on parcels 28, 29, and 30. And a 6 foot solid screening fence is constructed along the majority of this property line. The way in which Provision 8 is written upon development of parcels 29 and 30, the solid fence will have to be upgraded to a wall unless Provision 8 is otherwise amended. Given the request to permit an increased intensity on parcel 29, staff is recommending that the wall requirement and landscaping to be required. So if we look at this aerial map here, properties to the north of the parcels are zoned, well, north of here, this is LC Limited Commercial District, and then here is SF5 Single Family Residential District. This is with, this red part here is within the CUP, and it's developed with commercial office space, and then the SF5 zone parcel here is developed with an elementary school. So adjacent to the school and north of the CUP is a retail store, which is also zoned LC. It used to be part of the CUP, and then it They formed a separate CUP afterwards. South of these parcels is zoned LC Limited Commercial District as well. It's within the CUP and it's developed with multifamily residential dwellings. And then properties to the east are also zoned LC Commercial District, are within the CUP and are developed with office uses. Properties to the west here in yellow are zoned TF3 two-family residential district, are within the CUP and developed with duplexes. The requested zone change in the CUP amendment are in conformance with the adopted comprehensive plan. Within the community investments plan, it identifies the site as new employment, so that's why we consider it to be appropriate. And so based on the information available at the time the staff report was prepared, it is recommended that the request be approved subject to the following conditions. Number one, should the applicant install landscaping in lieu of a wall on the west property line, the applicant shall submit a landscape plan to the planning department prior to the issuance of building permits. Two, the development guidelines shall be modified to read in accordance with the attached recommended text. Three, the site shall be developed in substantial conformance with the revised development guidelines and general provisions of the approved CUP. And four, the applicant shall submit 4 revised copies of the CUP to the Metropolitan Area Planning Department within 60 days after approval of this case by the governing body, or the request shall be considered denied and closed. And with that, I will stand for questions. Oh, I should mention, this was approved by DAB 4. Yes.
Any questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Green.
Yes, can you explain the need for the wall on parcel 28?
This is, oh, sorry, what were you going to say? This is to adhere to the CUP amendment and also the landscape ordinance.
Okay, but does 28 butt right into that piece of, I guess it would be parcel 29?
Yeah, so the top part here is parcel 28 within this outline.
The map that you show us on page Ridge Plaza.
Oh, I stand corrected. I do
Community Plan,
apologize.
Page 9, it shows that parcel 28
Yeah.
doesn't go all the way over to.
I do apologize. I
the west
misspoke.
part. So does that still need to have a retaining wall and a wall that separates 28 from 29?
No.
Okay, so that could be, that piece of the requirement could be removed.
Yes.
Right, as the parcel boundaries are right now, 28 spans that entire length east to west. But in the amendment, they're taking the western portion of parcel 28 and giving it to parcel 29. So all that's left of 28 is under different ownership outside of the boundaries of this amendment. And so there will not be a wall between, basically, if you look on the very north part of the map, almost where her cursor is, to the left of her cursor is currently 28 and is going to 29. East side of that is 28, and so where her cursor is, there will not be a wall requirement. It's the western boundary of the CUP next to the TF3 zoning.
That makes sense. The wall between 28 and what will now be 29.
It's just a unique situation that parcel 28 is under dual ownership and has like 2 different tracts within one parcel. And that's probably why they're getting rid of the western portion of 28 and giving it to 29 to avoid that misconception that the parcel has 2 tracts within it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? If not, we'll call forward the agent or applicant. And you'll have 10 minutes.
Good afternoon, Phil Meyer with Boffman Company, agent for the applicant. We are here today asking for a zone change on parcel 29 to the office warehouse district. This property was originally zoned in 1970. So 52 years ago. It was platted in 73, which is 49 years ago. This property has never developed over that time. We do not have a specific use we're moving to this property, but we feel the office warehouse district fits this property better and gives more opportunity for it to develop, since it hasn't developed over the last 50 years under limited commercial zoning. Our intent is that we want to market it for trades, whether that's an electrical contractor, a plumber. We're going to do some buildings there and see if that use fits this specific area, since there's not a lot of visibility for this property. It's more of a destination use, where most limited commercial uses, they want more visibility and accessibility. The only item for clarity, if you look at staff recommendation, and Christine and I were talking about on item 1, there is a nice hedgerow that exists along the west line of parcel 29. So instead of doing a masonry wall, we would have the option of submitting a landscape plan. And our intent would be to preserve that hedgerow that's there, fill in any gaps that are there. And if that plan meets the satisfaction of the planning department, we would leave the hedgerow there as the buffer rather than taking it out and putting in a masonry wall. I would remind the Planning Commission respectfully that office warehouse does not have a lot of outdoor storage that's allowed within it. So most of this development is going to occur within buildings, and those buildings are going to be the same shape and size as if it was developed limited commercial. So with that, I will stop and answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for the applicant from the commission?
I do.
Go ahead, Commissioner Cunningham.
Hi. Yeah, on the hedgerow, who will maintain it in the future?
I believe the majority of that hedgerow sits on this property, and the answer is whoever's property it sits on will maintain it. But I believe most of that hedgerow is sitting on parcel 29.
Okay.
I'm sure the owners will correct me if I'm wrong.
Any other questions, Commissioner Green?
If something were to happen to that hedgerow, and it, gets the evergreen disease, would a wall then need to be put up, and would that be something that we should include in any motion if we were to decide to?
So I'll take my shot as they huddle for their answer. If the hedgerow goes down, I believe the applicant would have two options to either replace it with additional landscaping that meets satisfaction or install a wall, but one of those two would have to happen to be in compliance with the CUP.
Staff, did you have any comment on that? Okay,
I can talk longer.
all right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right. Anyone will now call for public comment. So members of the public who would like to speak on this item, please proceed to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to make your comments. Thank you.
My name is Elba.
Please speak into the microphone so people participating virtually can hear.
My name is Elba Abreu, and my husband is Leandro Sanlate. We owned the
And your address, please? I'm sorry, your address?
7929 and 7931.
Okay.
I would love for you
The street?
West University.
Okay.
And the property in 7931 also is the corner of Wichita.
Okay, thank you.
I have lived in this neighborhood since 1994. We live in peace, but after this wonderful committee had approved around our home, all those businesses that we have now, we had a lot of crime. In fact, I'm disabled right now, and I had to get out of my house because I cannot be alone and I don't feel safe. Can you imagine when that a limited commercial property that they're going to start is going to impact us? Because I do believe that unless the city built a wall and closed the University Street and there and just leave the commercial out, we are not safe. And I'm telling you, there is a few neighbors of mine, because not everybody, they receive those letters and don't read it. Not everybody is here today that doesn't, and may don't even know that this meeting is happening. But I know a few neighbors of mine that they have even get out of their neighborhood because the crime that we are having right now. In fact, 2 days ago, we had to call the cop because someone was trying to get into the property, and I had a tenant. His name is Charles Flores. And I had to run to his house because he was concerned that somebody was breaking his home. So this is just for you to see how the crime is in our area now. We used to live in peace. I used to walk around all those, the Holland Street and just go around with my kids. Please, if I can continue, just stop me, okay? But I want you to know that if you guys approve this project, you might consider, and we will appreciate it, to buy all those property around in the 7-9, Until whatever, because you are placing our life in danger. So I request this committee to please consider to maybe deny or proceed. And if you proceed, we request a wall and ending the enclose the street,
Okay.
ending
Your time's
after
up.
the school entrance and the 7-9, the two fair condos to be divided and had a wall over there for us to be safe.
Your time is up. Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate you speaking. Any questions for the speaker? Another speaker, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. This will allow us to communicate with you any additional action on the case. That's why it's important.
Hi, I'm Darcy Dagg. My address is 430 South Woodchuck.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Darcy.
Darcy. I can't hear either.
I am from Kansas, but I'm not that Dorothy.
Okay.
So what we want some kind of a retaining wall, but not necessarily to keep people out. We flood. That property is 3 foot higher than our backyard. Any rainwater comes right in, and it's flooded my basement, and it's flooded 432's basement on numerous occasions. We've built up the land as much as we can, but it's still coming in. So we need some kind of a water retention wall to keep the rainwater and whatever else is coming off of that property into our homes. I don't know how many of the other homes along there have this happen, but it's happening to us. And I can't keep replacing carpet. I mean, and I know my parents are my neighbors, and I don't know if they're going to come up and talk, but they've had to replace their ceiling in the basement numerous times, and carpet and everything else. So it's a problem. Either that's got to be leveled out to match ours or something. And that's what our main concern is.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Commissioner Hartman?
Have you noticed any increase in crime since you've lived there?
I have had to call the police a few times from people trying to get in our backyards. Somebody had shot through my parents' shed and into the side of their house. Some high-powered gun. I mean, I was outside when it happened. I heard it. It scared me. I took my dog inside. So, yes, we have had an increase in crime.
So what do you attribute that to?
I have no idea. I don't know if it's the hotels that are right there, the homeless community, or what. But there is definitely. I mean, my parents have lived there since 1984. So, and I actually just recently bought the other side of the duplex from them. But I grew up there. So, yeah, from the time I've grown up there, definitely it's increasing crime rate and everything else there. And I know that there's been several people along our street that have said that their cars have been broke into, things like that.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Hartman? Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Yes.
Darcy's parents, did you want to speak or have you anything to add? Okay. Sir, did you want to speak? Please approach the podium. Please approach the podium. And we ask you to, we can't allow you to speak a second time, but you're, to translate. To the microphone, and we do ask you not to repeat information you've already presented, but to add any new information that we may not have heard.
Traducio. Hi.
Leandro Sanley, he's English.
Can you speak in the microphone, please?
His name is Leandro Sanley.
Yeah.
Gotay. We married 12 years ago, and he just wanted to say that since those crimes increased, since I had some disabilities issue, and I started having anxiety and panic attack, it's also impact those crimes that we're having, and I'm kind of afraid right now. That's his concern, because we are not rich. He cannot pay a nursing for me. So he spent a lot of money because in nursing care for me, because he cannot leave me alone. I cannot be alone because all those crimes that we have. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? All right. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak on this item? Anyone participating virtually who would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, we call that agent. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there someone virtually who would like to speak? Okay. Applicant, yes?
If I may, I would like to offer that we did have an answer for the question about whether or not if the hedge was to die for whatever
Okay.
reason, or the landscaping, what would be required.
Okay.
And so I just want to point that out before the agent got up. And in talking with Philip, a review of it says that they would have to, in lieu of the wall, they would have to submit a landscape plan if they wanted to use vegetation or landscaping. And so they would have to be in compliance with that plan. So if the landscaping was to catch a blight and die, they would be responsible for replacing that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Mr. Myers, you have 2 minutes to refute what you've heard from the general public, please.
Okay. So my summary of the neighbor's concern are two items: crime and flooding. I don't know how to address the crime. I would tell you that undeveloped property probably makes it easier for crime, and if we had development on there and some security cameras, less likely that people would be coming in from the west to their residences. So I think that could help that. From the flooding standpoint, we will have to do a drainage plan, whether we do a wall or we do landscape. Upon development of this site, we're going to have to do a drainage plan. We will have to do detention. We've looked at that already. Our detention would end up probably along the south of parcel 29, but it drains out to the east. So upon development of this site, we're going to limit, probably eliminate, but we're going to really limit the amount of water that drains from this site onto the residential property at this time, because we won't be able to allow to do that anymore after the development occurs. So we'll be mitigating or solving the drainage problem upon site development. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for the agent?
Yes, your detention, is that going to be like a pond?
Yes, we will. It'll probably be a dry pond, but there will have to be detention to meet today's drainage manual. And it's going to have to drain to the southeast corner and further south along Holland Street. So I'm proposing it's going to be on the south property line.
Okay, thank you.
That's great.
Any other questions for the agent? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the commission.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve, subject to the staff comments with the one change of allowing them to keep the tree line in or a fence.
Okay,
Second.
I have a motion and a second. The motion to allow a tree line in lieu of a wall to leave the existing hedgerow.
And to drop that requirement for
And-
the fence on 28 that would be, yeah.
Okay, and Commissioner Cunningham, you agree with those changes to the,
Yeah, yes.
for the motion? Okay, so I have a motion from Commissioner McKay, a second from Commissioner Cunningham. Any discussion? I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And with that, the motion does pass. Thank you. Hopefully, I think what the agent indicated, in all my experience, a vacant lot draws much more crime than something that's developed. No. Okay. Okay, thank you for your testimony. I will. Okay. Okay, goodbye. Item 4.5, is Stephen with us today? Stephen, will you come forward, please, on the projections for population?
Yes. Okay, this is for DER 2022-08. Go to the next slide, or can I do this from here? Okay.
Hey, Stephen,
We are actually going to request a deferral on this. We have not gotten as far as we would like with the
Pardon me?
county.
We're on item 4.5. I'm sorry, go ahead.
With the county advisory boards in each district. Does this?
Stephen, that
think-
one doesn't control the PowerPoint, so you'll have to request to
Okay.
advance the slide.
Go next slide. Okay, we'll go past that one. Next slide. This is basically information we've given to the advanced plans back in August and September. Next slide. This is primarily a technical update to revise the population targets using the 2020 census on the comprehensive plan. We are going to update the Wichita Future Growth Concept Map and assess future funding of capital improvements. We are not changing plan principles, priorities, or policies. Next slide. The 2020 census gives us a good benchmark to measure the progress or lack of progress, as it may be, with the current population forecast. It is substantially lagging. Next slide. Public Works and Utilities wants better forecasts in order to update their sewer and water master plan, and the Wichita Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, which brings in federal funding for transportation products, also wants a better forecast because many communities are competing for the same dollars, and this will help them in their efforts. Next slide. We did look at the census data going all the way back to 1970. It did confirm the comp plan is too high based upon historical highs and lows. It's not that we've seen rates as high as the comp plan used, but not for a 20-plus year period. Next slide. We looked at 2020 to 2030 forecasts from the U.S. Census Bureau and WSU Center for Economic Development and Business Research. Their rates showed for national, state, and the local area rates ranging between 6 and 7%. Next slide. We look at some economic forecasts that use birth rates, immigration, and other factors driving the economy. They're basically saying expect current economic productivity to continue where it is through 2030. Next slide. We also looked at the local residential building targets, or trends, I should say. The labor market challenges faced in that industry, as well as the fact that over the last 5 to 6 years, the residential development has actually been fairly high. I think given the circumstances we're in, that also provided us kind of a benchmark to really look at. There are questions about material supply and interest rates. Going forward, we know there will be up and downs in the industry. Next slide. We don't see any real changes in job growth or labor force participation. There have been shifts in economic sectors in terms of number of jobs and so forth, but many reports that I've seen and heard, they're saying that we're on the mark pretty much at the pre-COVID levels in terms of number of jobs. We don't see any change in trends in household size. The 2020 census confirmed that we are still on that trend of decreasing household size. COVID did create some blips in that, both economically and household sizes. People gave up their apartments or whatever due to loss of jobs, but everything seems to be turning back to normal. Next slide. Please don't try to read these numbers. We looked at several scenarios, and what we started to do is take an alternative approach in looking at this. If we kept the target populations the same for Wichita and Sedgwick County, that's 610,000 population for Sedgwick County and 448,000 for Wichita, what would happen as we applied different rates, going from the blue top columns represent Sedgwick County, the yellow or orange is Wichita. And from left to right, we went with the rates during the 2010s, which was a very slow decade, to the rates currently in the comp plan, and applied several rates in between. And as we looked at all these factors, next slide, we decided that looking at a rate of 0.63% per year for Sedgwick County and 0.5 per year for Wichita made sense. If you go to the next slide, this kind of singles out those rates from the previous tables. And what that does is put the target population for Sedgwick County down there between 2044 and 2045, and Wichita also 448,000, again, in that 2044 to 45 area. Taking this approach by leaving the target populations the same, if we go to the next slide, we do not see need to recalculate dwelling units if we stick with the same household sizes. And in terms of labor force participation for those populations, there wouldn't be any change. It basically shifts the time frame of the comprehensive plan from 2035 to 2045. Next slide. There is another element of the comp plan we do want to update, not because of population impacts of the map, because we would be accommodating the same population, but we do need to update the background land use layer to reflect the last 10 years of development activity, and then make some minor modifications to the growth areas and come up with some better symbology. Next slide. This slide shows residential development in the past 10 years, mostly within the growth areas. There are a few areas where it was outside, but substantially within the growth areas. If you go to the next slide, and that is commercial development, again, falling mostly within the growth areas, but seeing a little bit more scattered development in the established central area, the black dotted line toward the center of the map. And we expect that because those properties are seeing a lot of redevelopment as well. Next slide. This is the current land use layer that we're using, and if you go to the next slide, this is the new land use layer, updated, showing the last 10 years of activity, but we're also changing some of the colors, a lighter blue for institutional compared to the purple for industrial, and a brighter green for parks and open space, golf courses, those kinds of things, compared to what we had in the past. We had so many situations where institutional and industrial colors, depending on the printer or the projector, were so close together it was hard to tell things apart, and we hope that this will solve that problem. The next slide, we can go fairly rapidly for these, but this is showing the existing land use in the plan right now. If you go to the next slide, it shows the changes, expansion due to growth and so forth. And this is in the northeast. The next slide shows similar in the southwest, the old, and the next slide shows the new. We can go, yeah, there we go. The other thing, some changes to the growth areas. If you go to the next slide, we did meet with Wichita Public Works and asked them if there were any issues in terms of growth or impediments they saw or pressures they saw. They had very few changes to the map. Those are shown in red here, and we did adjust those. If you go to the next slide. Actually, I'd like you to go to, this slide right here. This slide shows the floodplain, actually floodway, the map, series of maps that was adopted by the city in 2016 after this plan was adopted. We had a lot of this information while we were developing these growth areas, but they had been refined since. So if you go to the next slide, the green areas on this map show where we took some areas out that are in the floodway areas. We also did take another area out here up near Zoo and 21st or 235. And that is because that's where the Northwest Water Treatment Plant is, and not going to be able to build any homes in there. So we moved stuff out from there. And then the additional red areas you see on this map is where we move those dots to in order to fill in areas that had developed during the last 10 years but were not represented. The idea is to make this map or these growth areas consistent with the entire period of the comprehensive plan now, 2015 to 2045. Next slide. This is the existing map, and if you go to the next slide, you are all familiar with this problem with the growth areas covering over the land use, making it very difficult to see. So the next slide shows we're changing the symbology, a brown hatch area for the residential growth areas and a red hatch area for the commercial or employment growth areas. So if you go to the next slide, this shows what it would be like in a case map with the black outline for the case itself and then the hatch area. You could still see the land use underneath this. And I've been walking with Paul Schiffelbein to even refine this further to make the line's a little bit thinner, and the transparency, between the two so that it's more readable. And then where the two crosshatch patterns cross, they form an X or box-shaped hatch pattern, and that's where you have your mixed residential and commercial areas. Next slide. Well, this is another example of that. Next slide. Another byproduct of making this change to consider was what is the economic impact. By giving an additional 10 years in this plan does make a little bit of a difference. In the existing plan, we said there was a $9 to $10 billion gap between Wichita's planned expenditures and projected revenues. So we asked Finance to give us a look at the CIP and what they would project over those additional 10 years. If you go to the next slide, basically it's saying with an additional 10 years, additional $2 billion in funding for the CIP for that time period. Next slide. And we can pass the numbers. Next slide. What this means is about half of that would go to continue maintaining infrastructure, doing repairs and things that we need to do. But the other half of that, $1 billion, would help close the gap to reduce it to an $8 to $9 billion gap. Next slide. This was the schedule with the MAPC hearing today. We haven't been able to get with all of the cabs, so we are asking for deferral, which will probably put the following city council and county commission meetings off a little further than what we show here. Next slide. Thoughts and questions?
Any questions on the content of the material? These maps are all available online, and you can look at them in a much larger size in order to see them, correct?
We can put this PowerPoint up there. The revised map is online. If you go to the same page that has the community investments plan. So you can zoom in on that and get a better look at that.
Okay, questions? Can we then, do we need to vote on the deferral, or can we just state we'll defer this to the, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Warren has a question.
My question is there anybody in the city or the county that understands this so that when you retire, someone explain this, what we're looking at?
Well, I think there's several people that do understand this. I'm a phone call away in terms of questions, but I think we've been through this quite a bit in staff and so forth. I think you'll survive.
Well, I would Commissioner Green.
The deferral, how will that affect any monies that we are wanting and are expecting to receive? Is the deferral going to hurt us?
No.
The deferral would be to act on this information at the December 1st meeting, since we weren't able to get to all the cabs. Is that possible?
Wouldn't be December 1st.
Okay.
Because of the cab schedules, we've had cancellations or off-site meetings where we could not do a presentation. And so we're probably looking at January, February to get to all the cabs.
Okay.
We're trying to assess what that schedule is, but that's kind of where it stands now.
So what staff will have, what we're requesting today will be an indefinite deferral.
Okay.
And the simple reason being that with the cab meeting schedules, some are meeting in January, some aren't. And so it may take a little while for us to kind of sort through all that. Okay. So we will, the impact to that is that we'll have to re-advertise it, but it's an administrative function, so
okay,
we'll take care of it.
All righty. So our vote will be deferred, but we benefited from Stephen's presentation of the information, which we won't have as a possibility in January. And I just want to commend you for all the detailed work you did to get this really up to speed and accurate for the person who steps into your very large shoes. Alrighty. Any other business from any of the commissioners? One more? Oh, yes, Mary Hunt, I see was on the calendar, but do we have someone else presenting
Madam Chair,
4.6?
I'm sorry, were you going to do a motion to defer?
Yes, let's have a motion to defer indefinitely the vote on the comprehensive plan. So moved by Commissioner Duell, second Commissioner Hartman. All in favor of the deferral signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay. Motion passes 13-0. And it looks like 4.6 will be presented by Scott Wadle.
Yeah, sorry for the change of plans there, but I'll try and keep this one relatively short because what's being proposed is relatively modest. And so I'm going to try and scale this. Unlike the one that you just saw, which is quite large and deals with a lot of different factors, this one is relatively basic. So the request today is we're looking at doing an update to the zoning code, and it would apply specifically to home occupation daycare, so very narrowly focused. Next slide, please. So the recommended action is for adopting the amendments to the code and recommending that the City Council and the Board of County Commissioners likewise would do so. Next slide. So in our code, the Unified Zoning Code, we have definitions for daycare. We have daycare general, daycare limited, and we also have an explanation of home occupation and what that means in the code. Next slide. So in the zoning code, we've got daycare limited, so it's operated as a home occupation, and you can see here provides supervision for no more than 10 individuals at one time. And the request today is to increase that to 12 individuals. And the reason why is because in this case, the city of Wichita, and I should say actually the zoning code, is more restrictive than KDHE regulations. And so if this was not in place, if this did not exist, people would be allowed under certain circumstances, if they've got enough space, if they've got enough adults, and considering the age of the kids, they may be able to have up to 12 students or children that they're caring for. But at this time, the zoning code sets the maximum at 10. Next slide. So we have a home occupation. Home occupations, again, this would be something that someone would be operating out of their house. In the zoning code, I think there's careful consideration about home occupations because of the impact that they could have to the adjoining properties. And in this case, we're recommending approval of increasing the number of children that are allowed or individuals that are allowed in a home occupation daycare because we don't feel like we don't think that it will have a substantial impact to the quality of life to folks nearby. Next slide. So, so again, I've covered this already about the existing zoning code limits it to 10. There's also specifications about where you can operate a home occupation daycare, or at least what happens when it's in SF5 or SF10. The other thing to point out here is that a home occupation daycare, the very last bullet point here, is limited to only having one employee as well as a substitute that can be available. One of the proposed changes in these code changes would be to allow them to have a second employee at a home occupation daycare. Next slide. So this wraps it. This is a pretty neat summary of it. It's up to 12 pupils and up to 2 individuals at one time that can be working for the daycare. Next slide. In terms of the review process, we had outlined this. I know you can't read all of this, but you can see that it was just kind of substantial. There were a number of places we were going to go and check in. We had a really great conversation with MAPC Advanced Plans Committee. And I think when the members of that committee saw it, they said, hey, look, this is relatively modest. We don't know that you need to go through this type of process. So next slide. So what we've done is we've shortened it up. We went to advanced plans, and they recommended it for the full MAPC. We've done briefings with the council members. We notified them, and a couple of them elected to receive briefings on it, but I think a lot of them felt like it was pretty minimal. We will be doing briefings with the county commissioners as well. So we're bringing it to MAPC. No one, when we've briefed them, felt like it was something substantive that should go to the DABs. I just think that they felt like it was so modest that it really didn't need to do that step. So then after the MAPC, we will be updating the county commission members and taking it to the city council and county commission. At least that's the intent of the process for now. Next slide, please. So again, the recommended action is for the MAPC to adopt the amendments that are identified in the staff report and that we've talked about in the PowerPoint, and then also to recommend adoption by the county commission and the city council. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? Any questions? I think it's mentioned in the report, but we heard this in advanced plan, the dire need for licensed daycare in our community. There's a great shortage, so adding 2 persons per licensed daycare would have some impact on people's ability to get qualified care. Any discussion, or would someone be ready to make a motion? Yes.
If I may, I don't know that there's anyone else, but if there's any public comments.
Yes, thank you. Anyone participating virtually like to comment on this case? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission.
I move that we take the recommended action.
I have a motion from Commissioner Green. Second from Commissioner Blick. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Hearing none, motion passes 13-0. Thank you, commissioners, for your time. The meeting is now adjourned.
This conference is no longer being recorded.